Hello and welcome to another edition of Currently in Quincy. I'm Joe Catalano. On today's program, we welcome the Friends of Wollaston Beach, get an update on their summertime activities, and also a representative from DCR is here to talk to us about the piping plovers on Wollaston Beach this year. First, though, we take a look at the weather and the news for you. Currently in Quincy, hazy sunshine. It's 83 degrees right now. This is really the peak of the heat today. Temperatures will soar into the low 90s this afternoon, but the humidity will make it feel more like 100 degrees. Another oppressive night tonight with temperatures only in the mid 70s, mighty muggy as well. And the storms return tomorrow. Could be quite a stormy day with the morning and afternoon thunderstorms. Some of them tomorrow could be rather severe, still pretty sticky with highs in the mid 80s tomorrow. But the good news is this time the storms will blow the humidity out of here. Sunday is looking very, very nice with a mix of sun and clouds, much drier, much cooler with highs Sunday into the mid 70s. Very pleasant on Monday as well with sunshine and a high around 80 degrees. Actually, most of next week looks very nice, but right now hazy and 83 degrees in Quincy. Checking news for you today, Quincy Mayor Thomas Koch says that some progress is being made in the effort to prevent contaminated water from flowing into Quincy Bay. Koch also said the city is working on projects designed to minimize flooding from future storms.
For example, the Beachcomber site was largely done by the Park Department personnel. The Furnace Brook project was contracted out. That's a big project. The one over by the rear of St. Mary's, that's a very effective project that's going to help us with capacity, but also it will definitely be more beautiful and more environmentally friendly when completed with the plant materials we'll be planting. So that's a good one. I mean, I haven't seen the agenda for this meeting, but we're always looking at ways to improve and update our environment and update our infrastructure challenges and needs. And as we know, looking across the country, there's some more challenges with weather events, and we've got to be mindful of that and continue to work on things that will mitigate those things when they do occur. As you know, we had some major challenges early on in my administration, including the West Quincy flooding that led to the design and completion of this Furnace Brook project, for example. It's one example of a project that can help mitigate those major storm events. So we continue to work on those. Also, we worked with the EPA on all our improvements on our sewer lines and any issues that we had with sewer lines leaking into storm drains, which lead into waterways. We've made tremendous progress in those areas. So I appreciate the work of the Storm Water Advisory Committee, but really Commissioner Grazioso and City Engineer Paul Costello and the teams and our outside engineering firms have done a really nice job meeting some of these challenges.
The city is working with the EPA after the feds sued the city over pollution levels in the waters of Quincy Bay. State lawmakers continue to try to come to terms on a new state budget. Almost a month into the new fiscal year, and the state's still operating on an interim budget as House and Senate lawmakers fail to come to a compromise on a wide-ranging tax cut package. State Representative Jackie Chan of Quincy says so far the city has benefited from a large increase in spending on public education.
Baked in the fact that, existing revenues or existing systems that we have in place is able to deal with it. I won't say shortfall, but I mean the rebudgeting of what the future is. I mean, like when we did Chapter 70, obviously, massive increase. The city got another $8 million and counting per year, $8 million plus per year additional money for education funding. Obviously it gets baked into the baseline budget for next year, right? And at least for 7 subsequent years, that's going to be the formula. Same thing we have Medicare, Medicaid, particularly the Medicare side. We pay half of all that as well as part of that federal program. That's baked in the future as, we keep talking about in the news over and over again, the baby boomers, right? It's constant conversation in the news. Those are our new Medicare recipients. So we actually have to budget our budget in anticipation of X number of folks hitting that age based on census data and budget that in. which then squeezes the rest of the budget, right?
Chan says some key sticking points include proposed cuts to the capital gains tax, gun law reforms, and putting some of the lottery's games online. Bipartisanship is still very elusive in the nation's capital. During a recent interview, I asked Congressman Stephen Lynch to describe the current political climate in Washington.
It's bad. But I would say it's driven more by, so the Republicans are in charge now. Mr. McCarthy is the speaker. They decide the bills that will go forward and what we will argue about, and what our priorities are. And so, unfortunately for Mr. McCarthy, he made deals during his speaker fight to give an enormous amount of power to what's called as the Freedom Caucus. So they are a different group. They're not traditional Republicans in my mind. I'm a moderate, so for 20 years I've worked with Republicans on the other side and tried to figure out, okay, what's best for America here? Let's try to collaborate. It's very difficult for those moderate Republicans on their side to really have their voices heard. They're being shouted down, I think, by the hard right and people who are unstable on their side. So Ukraine, for instance, they had an amendment the other day that would end all assistance to Ukraine, including humanitarian, in the middle of this war. They're fighting for their independence, and the Republicans, had amendments that would cut out all support, which would have been a gift to Vladimir Putin, right?
Lynch did go on to say he continues to feel pride in representing the people of the 8th District for the past 20 years. He praised Quincy leaders for their efforts in working to secure federal funding for the city. Eastern Nazarene College in Quincy has a new vice president for finance. Robert Hartman was recently appointed Chief Financial Officer at the four-year Christian school. Hartman will provide strategic leadership in budget development, resource allocation, accounting, risk management, and information technology. He most recently served as Chief Financial Officer at Columbia International University in South Carolina, and previously worked in Indiana Wesleyan University, where he earned a master's in business administration. Eastern Nazarene College President Colleen Durr said Hartman's wealth of wisdom and experience will serve ENC well in the months and years ahead. Hartman begins his new role on August 14th. The Norfolk County Sheriff's Office is the first Massachusetts Sheriff's Office to be recognized for training its leadership staff. Sheriff Pat McDermott has announced that his department received the Trilogy Award from a national law enforcement training nonprofit organization. 85 agencies across the country have received the award, including 5 Massachusetts police departments, but McDermott says his office is the first Massachusetts Sheriff's Office to receive that award. McDermott says he's committed to ensuring that his leadership staff is trained to be supervisors, commanders, and executive law enforcement officers. That award was presented recently at the Norfolk County House of Corrections in Dedham by Stoughton Police Chief Donna McNamara. It's our check of news for you today. Coming up, we get an update from the Friends of Wollaston Beach and the Department of Conservation and Recreation. That's next. Welcome back. Seems quite appropriate to be talking about things happening on Wollaston Beach in the middle of a heat wave, because that's where folks are going to go and try and cool down a little bit. So please welcome Maureen Mazrimas, president of the Friends of Wollaston Beach, and also Elizabeth Kernan is joining us. She is with the Shorebird Protection Program with the Department of Conservation and Recreation. So ladies, welcome to you both.
Thank you for having us.
Yes. Happy summer.
Yes, indeed.
You as well.
We're in it big time, Maureen, right now, right?
For sure.
Friends have already kicked off your season. I know you had your annual meeting not too long ago, right?
Oh, we had a meeting. I thought July was busy until I looked at the schedule for August. We had a great meeting in July in which we first met Liz. I had one of the people in our group said, "Gee, what's going on at the end of the beach? They're not getting rid of the seaweed or anything like that." And I said, "It's probably the shorebirds. It's probably the plovers, but let me check." And sure enough, I found out.
Yep.
And I said, if somebody in our group could be asking, why are they doing this? I thought it was appropriate to, bring in someone who could explain why they weren't cleaning the beach.
If folks who are so directly connected to the beach don't understand what's going on,
Right.
the general public most certainly doesn't know. Right?
And hopefully it was just one person in
That's
our
right.
group. Most people are probably
Well,
cognizant of what's going on.
Well, they all are now. That's for sure. That's for sure. Because
for
Elizabeth came to your meeting, right?
Yes, she came
Yeah.
to our meeting. We had a wonderful meeting,
Yeah.
and it was a good time.
Great.
And the day after that meeting, we had Story Hour on the beach
Yep.
with the Thomas Crane Public Library, and they did an amazing job. Unfortunately, it wasn't on the beach because of inclement weather.
Oh, what a surprise.
But it was moved indoors to the North Quincy Library, and we're going to do it again on August 14th,
Okay.
the day after Kids Fest,
Yep.
in the hope that we will return to the beach. But
Okay.
it was an amazing event.
Speaking of
Kids Fest.
right, is your signature summertime event.
Signature summertime event, and I had mentioned to you earlier, we had a situation for some reason, the beach got double booked, and we were sort of like, what are we going to do now? And it turned out that we turned lemons into lemonade.
Yeah.
We met with the Asian Women's Health and discovered that we had a lot of things that they didn't have. They had a lot of things that we didn't have, and we decided it would be a great opportunity to collaborate on something that would be beneficial to the entire community.
Excellent, yeah.
And so we're doing that. So in addition to the things we always had in the past, glitter tattoos and games and gaga ball and all that sort of thing, their group is doing origami, they're doing sand art, they're doing a lot of other things.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I'm sure you're going to see more about all of those things on both of our websites.
Yes.
Coming forward. So it's
Sunday, August 13th.
Sunday, August 13th
Okay.
from 1 to 4 p.m.
Okay.
And it proves to be a good time. We've never had a rain date because up until
Say that now.
I'm
up
knocking
until
at all
last
kinds
year.
of wood here.
Last year, we actually did have to postpone it because of bad weather, and it went from being in August to like late September. But it was a good time anyway. So it's promising to be an exciting event. And then in the process of speaking with the gentleman from Asian Women's Health, we talked about one of our giveaways that we always give out at our Kids Fest and
Yep.
every other event is our friend Dwayne the Storm Drain.
Yes.
And Johnny said he is going to be able to translate it to Chinese and Vietnamese.
great.
So hopefully we can hand out a bunch of coloring charts that are in a language that a lot of people can
It's
understand.
great, right? Because it educates people that what goes down the storm drain eventually ends up
In the ocean.
bay. Yeah, and we don't want that.
No,
Yeah.
we don't want that. And so in the process of, as I said, it's amazing how something that could have been not a great situation
Right.
turned out to be really great.
Yeah.
Because then I reached out to Mass Water Resources Authority, who does Dwayne, and told them about that, our suggestion, and they said they were fine with it. And then she said to me, "Oh, by the way, could you use a water truck for Kids Fest?" And I said, "What's a water truck?"
Right. That's what I said when you told me that this morning. I
What's
had
a
never
water
heard
truck?
of one either. Yeah.
Apparently, it's this big truck
Yeah.
where you can go up and it eliminates the need for disposing of plastic
bottles, yeah.
So the water truck is going to be on Wollaston Beach for Kids Fest.
Okay.
And then she said, "Oh, and by the way, do you know about Real Fish Day?" And I said, "What's Real Fish Day?" And she said they have their annual fishing day at Real Fun Fishing Day at Night Island.
Yep.
And they provide the hooks and instruction and the licensing and all that
Yeah.
stuff. So that's going to be on September 30th.
Okay.
That'll also be on our website. So a lot of good things came from it. And so in addition to Kids Fest, Story Hour, There's also sunset yoga on the beach. We had yoga in the spring with Lori Scott, and this time we're going to be working with Christine Cotter, and we think, you know, yoga is an important element of wellness and that sort of thing, so we're doing that as well.
Okay, so you have a
So-
full agenda of items happening this summertime.
The
for sure.
big deal
Yes.
is September 16th,
Okay.
Coast Sweep.
Oh, yes, of course.
Coast Sweep is a worldwide cleanup in which people actually not only pick up debris and all that from the beach, but they have to catalog it.
Yes.
And the intent is to try and find out where it's coming from and things you wouldn't even think about. I was mentioning to Liz that last year we had 70 people do our cleanup. The year before we had 90. And last year we actually picked up another 600 or 700 more cigarette butts than we did the year before. And it was like 2,500 cigarette butts. And it's not that people are sitting on the beach and leaving their cigarettes in the sand,
Right.
although I'm sure that
Part of
some,
that, I'm sure, is
some
part of it, yeah.
do. But you know, they're having their cigarette, they're throwing it in the gutter, the
Yep.
gutter washes into the storm drain washes out to the beach, and
Yep.
the beach brings it back in again.
Right, right. No, that's the cycle. That's
Yeah,
exactly
that
right.
is the
Yeah.
cycle. So at least last year we didn't have. We did find some pet waste on the beach, but it was in its natural state. The year before, we actually found it in a
In
plastic
plastic
bag
bags, yeah.
on the beach.
Yep.
It's like, if you're going to go to the bother of putting it in a plastic bag, don't leave it on the beach.
Just put it in the trash.
Just put it in the
Yeah,
trash.
exactly.
So, yeah, Coast Sweep is Saturday, September 16
Okay.
from 10 a.m. to noon. And we'll be there with all of our friends. And I think that's about it.
Okay, well, it's not about it because Elizabeth is here to tell us all about the third year in a row, Elizabeth, that the Piping Plovers have found their home on Wollaston Beach, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Third year and the biggest year for Wollaston Beach, in
Oh,
fact.
is that right?
More piping plovers this year than ever before.
Wow. But you were telling me this morning that they've already fledged and flew the coop.
Yep, they are. Wollaston is sort of unique on a lot of our DCR beaches this year, and Wollaston actually wrapped up on July 16th.
Wow.
So we had 4 pairs that nested on Wollaston this year, and all 4 pairs were able to fledge some chicks.
Okay.
So we had a total of 6 chicks fledge from Wollaston. And the last one, and fledged, I should say, means they're able to fly. They're essentially, they can fly out of the way of threats and trouble and disturbance.
Yeah.
And that's really what we look for every year. And yep, that final chick fledged on July 16th. So Wollaston's completely open.
We have some pictures to show folks of what a piping plover looks like in its chick form and in
Yep.
its adult form, right?
Yep,
we
yep.
could-
They're a little bit different in both forms.
Yeah, so if
Yep.
we could show folks that way they get a sense of what we're talking about, because I didn't
Sure.
even know, until I saw these
And that's
pictures.
one of the big things too, is we find that plovers by design are very well camouflaged. So yeah, so this this photo you have is of a very young chick,
Okay.
and you can see they have that lovely modeling on the back of their feathers, and that's by design because they're a tasty treat out there for tons of predators.
Ah, okay.
And so by being camouflaged and being very small and being very mobile, that usually helps them sort of evade those disturbances. And that's tough for people on beaches where they want to recreate because
Right.
these birds are in the same area where we want to, bring our families and spend our beach
Right,
day.
yeah.
But they're very hard to see, and that's always sad for me because, I want everyone to see a piping plover. I think they're absolutely fabulous, and I spend a ton of time looking at them. And that's something I would love for Quincy residents especially, is to get a chance to see piping plovers.
Oh, a family.
So this is a lovely photo of a piping plover family. This is a familiar sight on Wollaston Beach. This is an adult male piping plover doing something we call brooding. So he's protecting some very young chicks there. And you can see one very clearly, but there's probably at least 2 or 3 other chicks under him as well. And that's because the chicks sort of need that extra thermal care from their parents and protection and shelter. And then this is probably a female piping plover. They look just a little bit different from the males, and both parents perform these parenting duties. And this female is actually protecting a couple of much older chicks. So these chicks are probably getting closer to about 25 or so days old, getting ready to potentially be able to fly, but still seeking that important parental care from their parents.
Okay. I think we have one more to show. Yep.
Yeah, this is a very classic photo of a male piping plover. So that shows, they're this lovely sandy gray colored shorebirds that they blend in with their environment, and then they have these lovely black markings on their eyebrow and their neck, and very striking orange bill and legs, which really sets them apart from some of the other species of shorebirds and sandpipers that you'll see out on the beach as well.
Okay, and I think we have an adult female to show. Oh, maybe not.
They're very similar, just a little more muted.
Okay. So, Elizabeth, why is it important? There she is.
There she is. Yeah. So still has those similar markings, but just a little more faded and muted, usually in the brow and the neck band.
So why is it important to protect piping plovers?
So piping plovers are a species of shorebird that's threatened both federally and in the state of Massachusetts. So they're protected under the Endangered Species Act and the Massachusetts Endangered Species Act. And that's because their populations really suffered a steep decline, especially in the late 1800s to the 1900s. And at the time of their listing in 1986, we were down to about 140 pairs of piping plovers in Massachusetts. And now, because of these recovery efforts, DCR isn't alone in doing this. All beach owners, landowners, various municipalities, organizations are doing this across the state and the Atlantic coast. We're seeing some recovery of the population. So we actually had over 1,000 pairs just in Massachusetts alone last year.
Wow.
So that's a sign that we're doing a little better. Some of these efforts are making a difference, and that's very important.
Why did they come to Wollaston Beach, and why only 3 years ago?
I'm not sure why it took them this long to find Wollaston. I think it's a lovely beach. It has all the markers for exactly what they're looking for, though. So, piping plovers are Massachusetts locals. So even if they're not on a beach this year, they can find that territory in future years.
Okay.
So, in 2020, probably the first intrepid piping plover pair decided they were going to pick Wollaston to nest. And piping plovers nest just in the sand, so right on the ground, right where we're spending our recreational hours on the beach. And so, the Wollaston's got a lovely expanse of lovely sandy beach. It's got a lovely intertidal zone that shows up when the tide goes out, and that's where piping plovers...
Like behind you.
Oh, yep, exactly that. So that shows that lovely mud flat that you get on Wollaston Beach, and that's why it's such a good place for shorebirds especially.
Okay.
All of that sort of muddy area is actually a really good spot for piping plover adults and chicks to forage. So they find their diet of bugs and worms and bivalves and small crustaceans in the sand. And that's what keeps them going. That's what they come to Massachusetts for.
Okay, so where do they come from and where do they go?
So their piping plovers really arguably do it right. They spend the summer in Massachusetts on our beautiful hot beaches. And I should say too, they nest on sandy coastal beaches all across the eastern coast of North America. So all the way from Newfoundland in Canada down to North Carolina. And then come late July through early September, once they're finished up with nesting, they head south and they spend their winter anywhere from North Carolina to Florida and even the Bahamas, the Gulf of Mexico, the Caribbean. So they do some island hopping over the winter.
Okay.
And then they're usually back here in Massachusetts by around early April.
Okay, very interesting. So that's the reason to protect their nesting area, because they are so vulnerable, right?
They're very vulnerable, and so because they're nesting right on the beach and because they're very well camouflaged, even biologists who are spending their day out there looking for them, they can be really hard to spot, and that's by design. And that means that if people don't know where plovers are, then plovers are at risk of being disturbed out of their preferred areas for shelter and foraging. And it means that, in the worst case, it means that their eggs and their tiny, tiny chicks, we're talking tiny little fluff balls on toothpicks running around on the beach, are vulnerable to being stepped on or crushed.
Yeah, you might mistake it for just a
you might not even
piece
see
of driftwood or debris or something. Yeah,
exactly.
Why it's important too to keep dogs off the beach, right?
That's a really big one, and that's I like to stress this because I'm a dog lover. And we all have friendly, wonderful pets that we want to bring with us everywhere. And unfortunately, to a piping plover, they don't know the difference between a good, friendly dog and an aggressive dog. Right. And actually, the science has shown that even just well-behaved dogs on leash on our beaches are really disturbing to the piping plovers during their nesting season. So that's why on Wollaston Beach and all of our DCR beaches where piping plovers nest, dogs are not allowed on the beach from April 1st to September 15th. So September 16th, bring your leash dog back and enjoy the beach,
Okay.
please.
So, but it must be a great asset for the folks at DCR to have groups like the Friends of Wollaston Beach to work with to get the message out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is huge for us, and I've thanked Maureen already, and
Yeah.
I'll thank you again for making that connection, because again, this is, you know, the DCR recovery program, Shorebird recovery program, really wants to be involved with the communities that are around these beaches and that come visit these beaches.
Right.
And I think that's really key, is
Yeah.
just for people to be aware, and yeah.
Thank you for bringing Elizabeth today,
no
Maureen. This has
problem.
been a great educational experience, and I hope we've let a few folks know about what's going on their beach.
And don't forget, there ain't no poop fairy.
No poop fairy. Pick it up yourself and throw it away. Thanks to both of you. Really appreciate it.
Okay,
Thank you
thank
so
you.
much, Joe.
Just enough time to check the forecast. It's definitely a beach day today. Hot and humid with highs in the low 90s. No storms today. Those are coming back tomorrow. We've got a pretty stormy day on tap for Saturday. Thunderstorms morning and the afternoon. Still pretty muggy. Highs in the mid 80s. But it clears out nicely. Nice and dry and cooler on Sunday. And Monday is looking just sparkling as well. So enjoy it. Don't forget, thanks to our crew for helping us here on the program today. Thanks to our guests as well, Maureen Mesrimus, Elizabeth Kernan. And thank you for watching. Check out our website anytime. It's qatv.org. You'll find our latest programs. There's news and information, video on demand, live streaming, and much more. For all of us here at QATV, I'm Joe Catalano. Have a great weekend.